Hello, my name's Julian Seal, and today I'll be arguing the importance of the social cultural environment and how it affects skin cancer and melanoma. So, firstly, I just would like to introduce you to the disease that is skin cancer and melanoma and how people can obtain the disease and how it affects their lifestyle. And yeah, so the fact of the matter is, melanoma is one of the most common cancers found in Australia in both males and females. It is almost becoming the number one common cancer in Australia today. The risk of being diagnosed in Australia is 1 in 13 for males and 1 in 22 for females. Melanoma occurs on parts of the body that have been overexposed by the sun. People increase their risk of obtaining this disease by increasing their exposure to the UV radiation, particularly with episodes of sunburn, especially during the childhood phase, where their skin is quite sensitive to the sun. Melanoma risk is increased with people who have unprotected sun exposure, increased number of unusual moles, depressed immune systems, a family history of melanoma, and if they have fair skin. Often melanoma has no symptoms. However, the first sign is generally a change in color, shape, size, elevation of an existing mole. Progress within Australia has been made in recognising and attempting to educate its population on the detrimental effects sun exposure can cause. The most prominent and well known would be the Slip Slop Slap campaign launched by the Cancer Council within Victoria in the 1980s. The aim of the campaign was to make Australia aware of the dangers of skin cancer and thus encourage them to limit their sun exposure in order to protect themselves from melanoma. Evidently, this public health campaign was extended in later years by SunSmart, and to this day works tirelessly to continue this campaign. This ultimately further demonstrates how Australia, although still a long way from controlling the horrendous statistics and lives lost to skin cancer, is attempting to address this public health issue. So now I'm just gonna number off a number of factors that contribute to the disease of skin cancer and melanoma. So the first one will be the environment, so that affects skin cancer and melanoma. So the location of Australia. Australia faces many days of sunshine, roughly around 246 days a year, meaning that Australians are often outdoors and putting themselves at risk of potential danger from the UV. So the UV stands for ultraviolet radiation, which comes from the sunlight. However, the UV isn't just something to worry about during the sunny days. It can also be very dangerous on cloudy days, where people would often not even put sunscreen on because they just assume that the sunlight is that sun is where the UV hits the most. But actually, cloudy days are as dangerous as sunny days are. Studies have also illustrated that it does not have to be chronic, contagious exposure to sun for melanoma to develop. It can just be as easily as developed through small levels of exposure, like just being out on the sun on the weekends, playing football or something like that. Doing the gardening on the weekends, you can still develop the disease of melanoma with a higher frequency of UV exposure. Evidently, this illustrates why sunlight itself and exposure to ultraviolet radiation is the most major environmental risk factor associated with developing melanoma. So, as well as location is one of the factors that is present for skin cancer and melanoma. Physical attributes of a person can determine their level of risk when developing skin cancer. So, a person's skin type can increase the risk of people developing skin cancer and melanoma. Majority of Australia's population are fair-skinned, meaning that their skin is very light in colour. Although Indigenous Australians have significantly lower numbers in skin cancer cases, it is those whose families come from British and European colonists who came to Australia whose skin isn't able to adapt to the environment. Their light skin means less melanin, which is our body's natural protection against the UV rays. Therefore, their skin types are very vulnerable to developing skin cancer. In addition to having fair skin, other physical attributes such as having blonde hair, having prominent and large amount of freckles and having a high number of moles on the body can also be factors that increase individuals' likelihood to develop melanoma. Another factor that is often publicised in the media is Australia's, that healthy tan that people tend to get. With Australia's laid back lifestyle and beautiful weather and scenery, people like to go outdoors and do these types of things. Whether it's leisure time, playing sports, or working out in the sun, we as a when this is an ingrained culture factor within a society that experiences the sun's exposure quite often, it increases the difficulty in having a more precautious society when this has been a part of their everyday life. Some may argue that if this is something they have always been exposed to, then why wouldn't the small acts of applying sunscreen and wearing protective clothing be secondary to them? However, unfortunately, it is common for Australia to feel invincible and have the mindset that it believes it won't happen to them. But obviously, it does due to these alarming rates. Culturally, a large amount of Australians idolise having a nice, healthy tan, and many get to extremes to gain this and maintain their tan. Individuals have been known to tan without sunscreen and tan with oils without SPF protection, or even the harmful practice of tanning beds and solariums, which can be very dangerous and even more dangerous than the UV rays that we can get from sunlight. These solariums have been banned in Victoria, but people still manage to get around them. So it is definitely an alarming issue, particularly in young Australians. So all three of these can have tremendous dangerous exposure to UV radiation and to significantly increase the likelihood of developing skin cancer. So all these factors contribute to the public health issue of skin cancer and melanoma to the population of Australia. By addressing some of these issues of these factors, we may ensure that people continue to get the right education on the disease, and it will go a long way in preventing individuals from putting themselves at risk of getting skin cancer and melanoma. Thank you for listening.